Hello, welcome to Sargy on Screen on Saturday the 8th of August 2020. Now I, like many people, like to talk about the things that are important to me, the things that I'm passionate about. And in my job and my vocation, I get to talk a lot about the things that I'm passionate about in regards to my faith and my beliefs. And on social media, if you follow me, you'll notice that I talk a lot about sport and in particularly football, and I get to interact there. And here on Sargy on Screen, this is my chance to talk about the things that I enjoy in regards to film and television. And every week I'll take 2 or 3 topics to do with those things and just chat about them, whether anybody watches or not. And usually that I'll start with a question that has been asked to me, and I'll try and respond to that question. So this week we're going to look at 3 things. The first thing I'm going to look at is a question that I've been asked this week is, what is it that I enjoy, or what is it that I love about films so much? Secondly, I want to talk about a film that I've watched this week that I've watched previously, and I've read the book called Sleepers. And thirdly, I want to talk about superheroes, and in particular superhero films. So firstly, why do I love films so much? And I think, like a lot of people, I've always been interested in stories. I love stories. I love telling stories. I love hearing stories, and I love being part of stories. Even as a child, whatever it was through, being read stories or reading books in school, and cartoons and all these things. I just love the journey of a story. And as much as I love reading books, and I still do love reading books, I think at a young age, film and TV helped fill the gaps in those for me. Because reading books, if you've got a quality author, it's easy. But if the author isn't technically as good, it can be more difficult. So when I was a child, for instance, C.S. Lewis or Roald Dahl, it was great. My imagination didn't have to work too hard to see the things that were written on the page, to envisage that. But some of the books were a bit more of a struggle. Whereas with film, the environment and the visual aspect of it is taken care of. And that's what I love. And as I spoke about last week when I first watched The Goonies, that whole journey, that story of the group of children, outcasts for one reason or another, go on an adventure and there's a treasure hunt and all these things. And I love that. The same with Home Alone. Seeing Kevin stuck in the house alone. And part of that journey and that story is all about how you can place yourself in it, how you can identify with the character. So that's the thing that really gets me about films. And that's why with films, my enjoyment is more important than any technical aspect. Now, I know people like to get really technical about films and the cinematography and different things, and I love that. But if the story's no good, I'm really disengaged. So I find that, and part of that story, being in that story, whether it's through a book or a TV program or a film, is an emotional connection. Is feeling emotional empathy with the character or the characters or their journey or their plight or the environment they're in, is finding that connection. So you may ask yourself the question, what would I do in this situation? So I just love stories. So all of the other aspects that make a good film are fine, but if the story is lacking, then I tend not to be interested or not rate it highly. So some of my favourite films have great stories, but technically they may not be the best because of the way they're made, because of plot holes or whatever. But if the story is good, then I'm in. I'm emotionally invested in the characters next, and then that's got me. So I think that's why I love films so much, is because I just love stories. And that leads me on, I guess, to a film that I watched this week again. I read the book when I was younger, and it really moved me, and I've watched the film a number of times, and I watched it again this week, called Sleepers. And if you haven't seen Sleepers or read the book, I urge you to do that. It's a fantastic story. Now, there is some controversy about whether it is actually factually true or not, but I'm not saying that's not important, but to me the story is still wonderful. And with the film is so well made, and it's such an underappreciated film, I think. It's so well made, it looks great, the cast is out of this world, but it all comes together to place the viewer in this case me, in the middle of that story, and then an affiliation with the main characters helps the emotional connection to them and with them as they go through their journey. And sometimes it even takes you, and like with Sleepers, it does, it's what would I do in this situation? And because of the emotions that are so strong through the film, the ethics that you hold, or the beliefs that you hold, somehow become challenged in that moment through watching a film, because you go, what would I do in that situation? Because this happened, but does that justify this? So Sleepers is a powerful film for me, and probably one of the most powerful in that aspect for me. So I love that. Kind of illustrates what I was talking about in the first bit about why I love films. That it grabbed me early on with just the look of it, and then the characters are just really warm feelings towards them, and then the journey they go on, I'm fully invested in that. So yeah, let me know if you've not seen Sleepers. Then I urge you to watch it. If you have, let me know what you think about it. Yeah, that would be great. And thirdly, the thing I want to talk about is superheroes. So this week I started watching Superman, the original Superman that I first watched when I was a kid. Now Superman is my favourite superhero. I loved them films as a child with Christopher Reeve and the whole sound, theme music and all them things I remember from my childhood vividly. And it must be 30 years since I've watched them. And I went back to watch the original this week, and there was still so much nostalgia caught up in that. But there was other things that maybe I didn't realise when I was a child that I thought were a bit silly, and I've said that in my review on Instagram. But I love, again, with superheroes, I think the sheer amount of superhero films that's been released in recent years has kind of brought the standard down a bit, because although Superman is my favourite superhero films are the Dark Knight trilogy, because I just think they're so well made. They're a bit darker, they're a bit more adult, whereas so many superhero films are just made for the masses to churn out, to make a lot of money and appeal to a wider range of people. Whereas my favourite ones are the ones that you can see it's a labour of love, and they're aimed to a particular audience, and they're a bit more realistic, I would say. But as I say, Superman is still my favourite superhero, so I've gone through that series from all of them through that to the most recent ones. So I just wondered, who is your favourite superhero, and what is your favourite superhero film, and do they correlate, and what do you look for in those things? So if you've got a response to anything I've said about why you love film, what you think of Sleepers, or what you think about the emotional connection to film, or anything to do with superheroes, then please get in touch, comment, message me, and if you've got any questions that you would like me to address next week, then please send them in. Otherwise, have a great week, and I look forward to connecting with you soon. Bye.